Deep breath under a rock structure, both arms wrapped around a stuffed orange toy nearly twice his size. Moments earlier, another monkey had shoved him aside. Now he presses his face into the plush fur and does not move. This is Punch, a baby Japanese macaque at a small zoo outside Tokyo, and the video of this moment would soon be watched by millions of people who had never heard of Ichikawa City Zoo. Punch was born on July 26, 2025 at Ichikawa City Zoo in Chiba Prefecture, Japan. He was named after Monkey Punch, the manga artist who created Lupin III. Within days of his birth, something went wrong. His mother abandoned him. Zookeeper Kosuke Shikano later explained that Punch had been born healthy, so staff initially separated him from the troop and began hand-feeding him with milk. Shikano believed the extreme summer heat around the time of birth may have played a role in the rejection. A primatology expert at Australian National University, Alison Biahi, later pointed to a broader set of possible factors behind such abandonments, including a mother's age, health, and inexperience. In Japanese macaque troops, infants depend on constant physical contact with their mothers from the moment they are born. They cling to her fur to build muscle strength, and that closeness gives them a sense of security in a hierarchy where every monkey has a rank. Without a mother, Punch had neither the strength nor the safety that closeness provides. Zoo staff intervened, hand-rearing him to keep him alive. But survival was only the first problem. A baby macaque needs something to hold on to, physically and emotionally, and a human caretaker cannot fill that role forever. Keepers gave him rolled-up towels and other soft toys as substitutes, testing what he would accept. Out of all the options, Punch settled on one, an orange, wide-eyed orangutan plush called Djungelskog, sold by the Swedish furniture retailer IKEA. Shikano said the toy's fur made it easy for Punch to grip, and its shape loosely resembled a monkey, which likely gave him a sense of security. In his words, the stuffed animal became a surrogate mother. Online, people who followed his story later gave the toy an affectionate nickname of its own, Ora Mama. The plan worked better than anyone expected, in one sense. Punch rarely let go of the toy. He dragged it across the enclosure floor. He slept curled around it, wrapping both arms across its body. He climbed on top of it and sucked his thumb while sitting there. He leaned down and buried his face against its head. Zoo head Takashi Yasunaga described Punch during this period as very outgoing, even as he remained physically inseparable from the toy. On February 5, 2026, Ichikawa City Zoo introduced Punch to the public with a short post on social media, noting that a baby monkey holding a stuffed toy could be found inside the enclosure and asking visitors to watch over his growth with warm support. Photographs and video clips began circulating rapidly. A statement posted by the zoo on February 15th described staff being caught off guard by the sudden surge of visitors that followed. Crowds began lining up outside the small municipal zoo, many of them holding phones, waiting for a glimpse of the monkey the internet had already decided to fall in love with. One visitor, a 26-year-old nurse named Miyu Igarashi, told reporters she had been moved by watching Punch's story online and decided to visit with a friend after seeing the videos circulate. She was one of thousands who made the trip in the weeks that followed. Some visitors arrived carrying their own stuffed monkeys, holding them up outside the enclosure while they waited to catch sight of Punch. But not every video that spread online showed a peaceful scene. Clips surfaced of Punch being pushed, dragged, or knocked away by older members of the troop, only to retreat to his stuffed orangutan afterward, burying himself against it while the rest of the group carried on around him. Viewers around the world reacted with alarm. A hashtag began circulating in support of the small monkey, and questions started piling up. Was Punch being bullied? Was he safe? Could a zoo really let this happen to an animal with no mother to protect him? The concern grew loud enough that reporters began asking scientists to explain what viewers were actually seeing. Smithsonian Magazine turned to primate experts, who offered a more complicated picture than simple cruelty. Young macaques often struggle to find their place in an established troop, the experts explained, and pushing, shoving, and dominance displays are a normal part of how a hierarchy sorts itself out. That did not mean the process was gentle. It meant it was natural and painful to watch regardless. Ichikawa City Zoo had already been managing that difficult transition for weeks. According to the zoo, Punch had been living with the troop since January 19th, 2026, after months of hand-rearing by staff. The early period was rocky. Punch had trouble integrating with his fellow monkeys, and viral clips from this stretch show him being pushed away by older members of the group. By February 23rd, the zoo reported real progress. Punch was playing with other monkeys and had begun eating without help from a caretaker, milestones that marked a shift away from total dependence on his human keepers. In a translated post shared on February 6th, zoo staff had already written that Punch was gradually deepening his interactions with the troop. A message the following weeks seemed to confirm. In late February, the zoo laid out its full strategy in an official statement, describing the process as a matter of animal welfare with one central goal: full reintegration. Staff had been nursing Punch from within the enclosure itself, allowing the rest of the troop to grow familiar with his presence rather than treating him as an outsider. They also paired him with a gentle young female macaque ahead of his full release, hoping her calmer temperament would help build his confidence. On March 5th, the zoo announced a clear turning point. Punch was clinging to his plush toy less than before, and had begun socializing with adult monkeys in the troop, not just the young female he had first been paired with. Footage shared around this time by zoo visitors showed him engaging directly with other macaques in ways that would have been rare just weeks earlier. Punch's two keepers throughout this process, Shikano and a colleague named Shumpei Miyakoshi, had raised him since the earliest days after his mother rejected him. Miyakoshi later told reporters that Punch was steadily relying less on the stuffed orangutan and was communicating with other monkeys, reaching developmental milestones that had once seemed far from certain. Shikano, reflecting on the plush toy he had helped choose months earlier, said he believed a day would eventually come when Punch no longer needed it at all. That day had not fully arrived by the time this story was told, but the direction was unmistakable. A monkey who once knew only the fur of a stuffed toy was, gradually, learning the fur of his own kind. Punch's growing fame carried its own risk. By May, the zoo was drawing large crowds almost daily, some visitors traveling from overseas just to see him. On May 17th, that attention took a dangerous turn. Video footage shared online showed a person dressed in a costume, a smiley face with sunglasses, climbing over a barrier and dropping into the dry moat surrounding the macaque enclosure. The monkeys scattered, rushing to the top of a rock structure as the intruder walked around below. Second person filmed from outside the fence. Zoo staff moved quickly, pulling the intruder aside before he reached the animals. Police identified the pair as two American nationals, a 24-year-old college student and a 27-year-old man who described himself as a singer. According to authorities, neither suspect made physical contact with the monkeys, and zoo officials confirmed no animals were injured. The zoo's head, Takashi Yasunaga, said nothing like it had happened at the zoo before, and that around 600 visitors had been present that day. Rather than close, the zoo chose to stay open. "We kept going, despite what happened," Yasunaga said, adding that he hoped the incident would not discourage future visitors from coming. In the days that followed, Ichikawa City Zoo restricted public access to the area around Punch's enclosure, installed intrusion prevention netting, and began permanent patrols at the site. Zoo managers said they were also considering a ban on video recording near the enclosure altogether, an unusual step for a zoo whose most famous resident became famous specifically because of the videos people took of him. Through all of it, Punch kept growing, protected now not only by an IKEA orangutan he had chosen for himself, but by an entire zoo staff and a wider public that had spent months watching him fight for a place among his own kind. Punch's story never involved a single dramatic rescue. It was built from small, repeated acts, a toy picked out by keepers who understood exactly what he needed, a reintegration planned carefully over months, and a troop that slowly made room for him, even as the world outside grew louder and more chaotic around him. If Punch's story moved you, share what stood out to you in the comments. And if you want to see more true animal stories like this one, subscribe for what comes next.